Well, thank you very much for coming. We initially scheduled the conference to coincide with the passage of the agreement of House Bill 475, but there's a delay because there's a lunch break. It's coming up in the afternoon, but I don't expect to have any problems of agreeing, except for there was a discussion by the Democratic Party that wanting to amend the bill. I've told them that I would oppose it. But so they said they're going to think about it. This lunch break actually gives them an opportunity to amend it. That's why I try to get it voted on earlier. But
네, 하여튼 감사의 말씀드립니다. 이 법안이 통과되게 된 것에 대해서 우선 조지아 주지사 의회에 감사 말씀드리고 개인적으로 영광이기도 하지만 또 여기 나와 있는 한국 기업 또 교민사회가 다 함께 누려야 될 영광이라고 생각합니다. 그리고 우선 무엇보다도 이 박근혜 정부가 출범하고 나서 처음으로 가장 큰 외교적 성과를 우리 조지아 교민사회에 안겨줄 수 있게 돼서 매우 기쁘게 생각합니다. 또 이번 운전면허 법안이 갖는 의미 중에 하나는 정치 과정에 있어서 우리 한인계 정치인들 역할이 굉장히 중요하다는 것을 굉장히 일깨워줬다고 생각합니다. 그래서 아마 우리 BJ 박이 없었다면 이번 법안은 사실상 불가능은 않았다 하더라도 아마 시간이 굉장히 많이 걸렸을 겁니다. 그래서 이번 과정은 이 정치적 프로세스에 있어서 우리 한인 사회가 얼마만큼 관심과 가져야 되는지, 또 우리 교민 사회가 이제 이 정치 과정에 조금 더 의식을 갖고 더 많은 사람들이 참여해서 변화를 가져오는데 좀 주도적인 역할을 할 수 있는 어떤 자극제가 됐으면 좋겠다라는 생각을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 다시 한번 우리 한인 사회가 배출한 우리 뛰어난 정치인은 이제 되게 돼서 정말로 감사 말씀드리고 앞으로도 많은 지지와 성원을 보내주길 부탁드립니다. 고맙습니다.
thank you, Consul General. There are a couple other individuals that I think deserve some credit. Obviously, the governor's staff and Governor Deal was a supporter of the bill, and without his help, I think it would have been a slower process. And Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle was actually very crucial. You don't see what the behind the scenes, the negotiation, and how bills get made. I will tell you from the inside that Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle was very instrumental, along with Senate President Pro Tem David Schaefer. At the time, he has a responsibility of making sure that all the concerns of the Republican caucus were addressed. And I want to thank the Senator Charlie Bethel, who carried this bill in the Senate for us. He's also Governor Deal's administrative floor leader. Chris Clark, who's CEO of the Georgia Chamber, had been a huge partner with us in making this work, along with the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce, and Columbus Chamber of Commerce. And last but not least, and I want to acknowledge somebody, my legislative aide, Young Tae, who is also a Korean American lawyer. He was instrumental doing research and background research on every state to provide information necessary to get the bill passed and address any legislator's concern. So this is show, if anything else, that having relationships with politicians and also volunteering down here, you can in fact implement and impact policy. One thing that I will note that although I've done radio shows and interviews about this bill, we unfortunately did not get enough Korean Americans to call in support of the bill. The opposition has made tons of calls on the bill, but we don't have anyone calling to support the bill. And I think it's to emphasize what Consul General said. I think engagement, civic engagement, is a very important thing for the Korean community. I encourage everyone to do so. I called the press conference for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to, first of all, thank Consul General Kim here. Behind the scenes, I don't think people realize how much of an advocate he was on passage of this bill. Consul General and I spoke back in, I believe, the fall of 2011 about the possibility of this bill. Georgia had to change its law. And one of the things that I don't think the general public realizes is the state and various chambers of commerce have been trying to change this law for 15 years. And every year the bill was defeated for several different reasons. And this year, I believe that with the efforts of Consul General and the Governor Deal, and the timing was actually very, very good. So I'm glad that the bill's this far. The Governor has indicated that he will sign it into law if it is agreed by the House, which again, I don't foresee any problems. We will be taking this bill up right after lunch, the next hour. And there are a couple amendments that have been attached to the bill, and I wanted to have an opportunity to explain, because I've been getting a lot of media inquiries about that. First of all, the amendments do not change the substance of the bill on reciprocity. It does place a couple additional conditions. The first is that the Commissioner of Driver Services would have to compare the laws. We'll use South Korea, for example, with the United States and South Korea to make sure that the laws are similar enough. That usually isn't a problem because federal treaties kind of govern the uniform traffic laws. Secondly, they also have to get certification from the Commissioner of Economic Development to make sure that the country with which Georgia is seeking reciprocity with is an important trading partner. So the language shows that persons or entities from that country have made significant investment in Georgia or prospectively is going to. Hence, since this bill was for economic development, we want to make sure that the Commissioner would not be granting driver's licenses reciprocity to any country, but those strategically important partners. And we drafted it, and I worked on the amendments, by the way, with the Senate. The language is provided so that we capture all our important trading partners, and I believe South Korea qualifies pretty easily, especially with all the Korean companies have located here in the state. And it also clarifies and specifies that certain countries, such as North Korea, who's on a State Department terrorism watch list, is not eligible for reciprocity. That's true under federal law. We're just making it explicit under state law, and it will not be changing the substance of the bill. The other amendment that the Senate has made shows that when you get a driver's license through the reciprocity process, you are by definition not a U.S. citizen. So there was, in compliance with the federal law and the state law, the license will have a notation on it called limited term, which coincides with your visa. If in fact a foreign worker comes here, they usually are an L visa or an H visa. And in conjunction with this bill, and I believe Senate Bill 122, that fixes the lapse period of people renewing their visas. So you get 6 months in the application of renewal of the visa, that your driver's license will be valid during that time. So it fixes two big holes, I think, in the economic development process. And the last thing, it reemphasizes what's already state law. When you have a driver's license that has a limited term on there, by state law, you cannot use it to vote. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you can't vote. So in the amendment, it specifies that you can't use it for voting. So substantively, it doesn't change much to the bill. I have worked to draft the amendments for the Senate to appease and to address some of the concerns of the senators. And once the House reconvenes, I will make a motion that the House of Representatives agree to the amendments as placed on the Senate. And once that happens, the bill would be going to the governor's desk for signature. And another inquiry is when is the bill going to be signed? I do not know that. The governor has 40 days. He could choose to sign it or not sign it. If he doesn't sign it, it becomes law. But my understanding is the governor will probably let the consul general know and other consul generals and business and commerce and industry to schedule a signing. And we will certainly let everybody know. If you're going to work here, right, you will need a visa. Right. If you're a tourist visa, you have a waiver program, certainly. Those individuals will not be eligible for reciprocity because of that. So if you have a L visa or an H visa, you generally have a certain amount of time. H visa, I believe, is 2-year terms. The L visa could be longer than that. And this bill is targeted to those individuals who are going to stay longer than a tourist visa, longer than 30 days, and residing in Georgia. And you will need to prove that you actually live in Georgia, meaning you need a utilities bill or some kind of a mortgage or anything like that. Prove that you actually live in Georgia to be eligible.
이거는 주 정부의 맨데이트하는 게 아니고 오토라이즈하는 거예요. 자기들이 그 리세프스에 들어갈지 안 들어갈지 판단할 수가 있어요. 꼭 해야 되는 법은 없어요. 그 조지아 주정부 입장에서 경제 개발에 도움이 안 되고 등등 조건이 맞춰서 안 할 수는 있는 거예요. 말씀하셨듯이 주지사가 패스한 다음에 우리가 조지아 에코노믹 디벨롭먼트 서티피케이트를 받아야 되는 거고 그 다음에 다시 또 이제 DDS로 협의를 해야 되는 거거든요. 그러니까 지금은 이제 포괄적 법안이 통과된 거고 넥스트 스텝이 있어요. 이 법안이 갖는 의미는 그 다른 나라들이 이런 걸 할 수 있게끔 우리가 문을 열었다, pave the way 했다는 의미가 있는 거지. 그 이번 법안에 스폰서했던 분들 또 우리 프렌드들이 많으니까 그 사람들한테 저희 그 땡큐 노트를 보내든가 감사 표시를 할 거고요. 그 다음에 이제 그 법안이 통과된 데 있어서 크리스 커맨스키라든가 또 DDS의 커미셔너는 많은 역할을 했기 때문에 뭐 좀 큰 어려움을 예상하지 않습니다. 그래서 정해진 프로세스에 따라서 일을 밟아 진행이 될 것이고 아마 빠른 시간 내에 우리가 그 어그리먼트를 할 걸로 기대를 합니다. 그래서 진행되는 사항은 제가 수시로 업데이트를 해드리도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 절대로 그 우리 법안이 성사될 수 있게끔 도와준 분들은 절대 있지 않을 것이다. 굉장히 많은 이 기회를 통해서 굉장히 많은 분을 제가 네트워킹할 수 있는 기회를 가졌기 때문에 굉장히 큰 제가 그 어세스 생각합니다.
The law won't go into effect until July, because that's generally when it comes into effect. And so after July, I think that's when you could probably start the process. And the Commissioner of Driver Services, Rob Michael, and Chris Comiskey, Commissioner of Economic Development, who's been very supportive of this effort, they will need some setup time to make sure that we get the documents in place. So I anticipated, I believe someone asked me what I thought would be the realistic date. My guess is probably beginning of next year we'll be able to enter into a reciprocity agreement if everything goes right.
어젯밤에 제가 크리스 커민스키를 만났거든요. 그 리셉션에서 만났는데 하여튼 굉장히 축하한다는 거 하고 정치 문제와 경제 이슈가 이번에 분리됐기 때문에 저는 굉장히 의미 있게 생각한다고 했어요. 그러니까 모든 것들이 다 굉장히 서포티브하고 페어블하기 때문에 저기 타임스케일이 굉장히 빨리 진행될 겁니다. 너무 걱정하지 마시고.